Hi, my name's Anna Serin. I'm Director of Listings Development with the Canadian Securities Exchange. You're joining us as part of the CSE's podcast series. I am joined today by the lovely Brea Lake, CEO of Accelerate Okanagan. Thank you for joining me, Brea.
Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now, this is a way overdue podcast because the CSE has participated with Accelerate Okanagan as a patron, I think 6 or 7 years now.
Yes, for sure. Long time supporter.
It's been a long time. Okay, so we're going to get into all of the things that you guys are working on now. But first, I'd love for you to tell us about what is Accelerate Okanagan.
Yeah, Accelerate Okanagan is a tech accelerator based in Kelowna, BC, and we help businesses start and grow and really scale here in our region. And we do that by providing mentorship, connections, and the community they really need to be able to thrive and build a sustainable business.
Absolutely. Okay, let's also talk about the amazing space that you now call home, the Innovation Center. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Innovation Center, we actually moved in there in 2017, but it's a beautiful pillar of our community here. It's 7 floors dedicated to tech and innovation in the region. And really, you know, a lot of tech companies and innovation build ventures have closed doors, and really about getting a space like this was to help to open the community to what is happening in tech and innovation. So we run a co-working space on the 2nd floor where we host lots of events and have over 52 tenants working out of that space.
I love your space.
Yeah.
It is gorgeous. What I'd love to talk about, because Accelerate Okanagan has just done so much for the community and the Innovation Center, but why Kelowna? Tell us a little bit of the backstory of why tech is so big in the Okanagan Valley.
Yeah, you know, I think what's great about seeing the tech industry grow here in our region is that tech doesn't have to happen in a major center, that it can start to happen in these more rural, urban communities. And, you know, Kelowna, I would say over the past 10 to 15 years, really has a strong foundation of companies that had success here in the early days that scaled and grew, and they exited and spun out other startups in the ecosystem. One that is kind of our claim to fame and you hear the most about is Disney's Club Penguin. So it grew here, scaled, and then exited. So that created a cluster of different gaming companies. But we've seen that happen now time and time again, where founders have built something over 10 to 15 years, and then they've exited. And our last kind of major surge in that was during the pandemic, where we had a handful of scale-ups exit, like Banana Tag, Two Hat Security, in our community.
That's amazing. And wasn't it part of the story that when they did the exit with Disney, that they maintained their operations in Kelowna, which fostered kind of the development of the community here?
It did, yeah. And I think what really helped is it helped to put us on the map, keep that talent that was attracted to the region here in the region. And it's just such a great legacy as foundation to plant the seeds here in the region for that.
Absolutely. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Kelowna also has this beautiful concentration of high net worth individuals who like investing in the tech space, and they have a risk appetite. So there's also kind of that added beauty to it, right?
It is. You know, I would say a lot of people come to choose to retire here in the Okanagan, and there was so much capital happening in our region, but it wasn't necessarily being deployed into the entrepreneurs that were building companies here. And so about 7 years ago, we actually wanted to figure out a way, how do we make that happen?
Yeah.
And we started the Okanagan Angel Summit. So how can we help these individuals become angel investors in our region and invest in their local backyard? And so we're really excited. We're actually kicking off our 7th Angel Summit right now. That's why you're in town today.
That's right.
To get to meet with some of the top 24 companies.
Yeah.
And we're looking at about $180,000 fund for this year that will be invested.
That's incredible. So the CSE this year is a sponsor of the Okanagan Angel Summit, which we're very excited to be a part of. And I think it's just so exciting for the capital markets to dip their toes in these young startup and growth companies, because some of them aren't so young and startup anymore. Some of them are really reaching that point where they might be prime for the capital markets, right?
They are, yeah. They're getting traction and they're looking at it. And I think it's so important for the CSE to play a role in these early stage startups, so that when they're starting to map out their capital journey and where they want to grow to, what is their exit strategy and what are they looking for? A lot of our angel investors are starting to ask those questions earlier and earlier on because they want a way out, and it helps them to de-risk their investment.
I think traditionally in the past there was this view, especially in the tech sector, that only a private exit was kind of, the dream to be able to get your company to. Do you think that they're starting to open up their minds to various different strategies or exit strategies?
I think they're having to, given the current economic climate. Companies are really needing to look at all the different options and figure out what makes sense for their business model. It's not as easy to find investment anymore or get to like a Series A. And so they're trying to figure out what are other options to help me get there in those other pathways that I might not get a private exit.
Okay, so if I am learning about this and I'm not in Kelowna, but I want to hear about some of these amazing companies, how do I find out more information?
Yeah, so the Okanagan Angel Summit is really unique in that we're actually training the angel investments over the 8 weeks alongside the companies. So there is that matchmaking that is happening. So this year we had over 34 companies put their ring in the hat from all over Western Canada. And the investors go through those applications and narrow it down. But really, over the next 8 weeks, the companies will get narrowed down from 24 to 12 to the final 6. All of which we're putting on through our social media and channels of who these companies are, who are leading this way, and what's happening. And so if anyone's wanting to watch out what's going to happen this year in the 7th series of it, is check out our website. We've just announced the top 24 on Friday.
Yes, and I noticed on your website you have all the companies listed there. So you can take a look and take a peek at who they are.
Yes.
There's some really exciting companies on there that are doing some amazing things.
Yeah, there is. And I think what's unique is the reach of this has grown over the past few years, but this year in the top 24, there's 14 companies that are Okanagan based. So that's from like the Soyuz up to Salmon Arm region.
Wow.
And really excited to see who's had traction and who are the new ones that are emerging.
So exciting. That's so great. Okay, let's go back to Accelerate Okanagan.
Yes.
So I know that you guys are always heavily deep in planning and thinking about the future. I know you have some pillars that are kind of drawn out by the group. So tell us about those and what the plan is.
Yeah, so just this past 6 months, we've been working with our board and the community to redefine where we want to focus for our next 3-year strategy. And really, there's 3 pathways that have kind of emerged for us. One is focused obviously on capital and connections and doubling down on this pillar. And what we found and where we want to go over the next 3 years is take it beyond just the angel side of things that we've been focused on, and how do we really help companies find the right capital at the right stage. And I think the CSE is a perfect example of at what point when companies have traction can we help them figure out how they can leverage the CSE.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest struggles no matter what the sector is, people understanding where the capital is coming from and what's the right source of capital for them, because that's a really important decision for companies to be making all the way from start to the capital markets.
That's exactly what we're hearing. And I think as we also scale and grow with those companies, once they have that traction and understand where they want to take on that capital, something that I think we can play a key role in is helping them find the right connections at that stage. So who's in our Rolodex, an old term, but who's in our Rolodex that we can pull out those right connections and make the proper introductions. I think something that's interesting we're starting to see is the interest in family offices wanting to invest earlier now into startups where they've mostly have been more traditional into real estate or larger investments. There's definitely an appetite to invest into tech and innovation now, which is interesting.
I noticed that in the past few years I've had a lot more conversations with family offices because the families are growing and younger generations are coming in. They understand these emerging sectors that are coming to market, so that's really exciting for us as well.
It's great to hear that's what you're hearing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the sectors are maybe a little too forward for them, but they're definitely getting involved where they can. Okay, so the 3-year plan.
Yeah, so one is on capital. The other 2 pillars that we have here, one is focused on high potential growth companies. So in our region, when we kind of did an analysis of where companies are at, over the past 10 years, we had a handful that scaled and grew and then exited during the pandemic. And so now we're going back of, okay, at the startup stage, there's so many ideas coming in, but how do we help to foster the few that have traction in the market and really help them get to that scale up stage? And so we were lucky enough to secure some funding this past year through Ascend BC,
Amazing.
Through Pacifican, a federal funder, to help really give wraparound supports to that stage of company. And so we're thinking like a handful of companies here in our region that are showing that high potential and really do have that traction where they can take adding in some like fractional support to really get them to that next level.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wonderful. Okay, so you have recently won Business Leader of the Year, so congratulations
Thank you.
for that. I know that you've just been so important in the community. You've been so important for Accelerate Okanagan, and you've helped so many companies in so many support, and your team is amazing. Everybody at Accelerate Okanagan is just a dream to work with. So congratulations on that. I wanted to ask you, in this position that you hold in the community, if you have any advice for companies that are looking to start up, grow, and ready to start accessing capital.
Yeah, well, thank you for acknowledging that. It was such an amazing honor to be recognized in
Absolutely.
the community for that
And well
award.
deserved.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think it was really, I was not expecting it whatsoever. But for companies that are starting out in our region here, I think one of the biggest things I would say is get out of your home office or out of the coffee shop and really come into the innovation or come in innovation center or come and meet with us.
Yeah.
Because it's all about building your network. I think that's the key in really fast tracking entrepreneurship is who you know
100%.
and learn. Be willing to learn from the people who are a few steps ahead of you. As you said, you came into town today to meet with entrepreneurs, hear these top 24 pitches, and they just don't know the level of expertise that's in the room. And so how can we help to get people into the building, making those connections to help fast track their journey? So I think that's a huge one, is like get out of your own space and into the community to build a network. The other aspect of that is be coachable. You know, companies need to pivot regularly now. And so how can you take the advice you're getting, distill it to what is relevant, but be willing to make a change and a pivot if you need to, given the current market conditions.
Wow, that is amazing advice. And I think all companies and all thought leaders and everyone should keep that in mind, right?
Yeah.
Is being able to pivot is important.
Yeah.
Okay, the final thing I want to touch on is the other thing that we're working on, and we always include Accelerate Okanagan, is our annual Summit on Responsible Investment, which we host in the glorious Kelowna, BC, and we do it in June. We're never surprised how many people from Toronto are willing to fly across the country to come and join us in person. I've noticed this transition in some of the companies that are coming out of Accelerate Okanagan are really there's a lot of work that's being done in sustainability and in clean tech and various other sectors around kind of that focus. What are you seeing as far as trends in that area?
Yeah, so it's so great to have a conference like that here in the region, because it does help to put us on the map for thought leaders in that space and attract the external expertise to see what's happening here in the region. We do start to see a bunch of different sectors emerging, and I think something that's been really exciting and an area of focus for us is actually in the agri-tech space. A lot of agriculture and agri-tech companies really do focus on that sustainability and the responsibility of our community and what is our environment going to look like in the future. And so we're starting to see a cluster of different innovations like that in our region. So that's super exciting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Forge out of Salmon Arm. No? Okay, they're an amazing company, and they're actually focused in the agriculture space, and they have a robotic product that helps actually harvest mushrooms.
Wow.
And so it does it way more effective and efficient than human individuals going in to harvest them. And again, very interesting of how they're building and scaling this in the region, but focused on harvesting mushrooms in the region.
Wow.
The other one that I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with is Rainstick.
I know Rainstick. They spoke at our first Summit on Responsible Investment.
Great.
Tell us about Rainstick, because I love this story.
Yeah, Alicia, their founder, she's just amazing and such a great advocate. But Rainstick is a circular shower, and so it recirculates the water that is getting used and allows you to reuse it while you're showering. And so it reduces, I think, by 80% the
amazing.
waste of the water. She, again, longtime supporter of the Tech and Innovation Center here and is really scaling and growing, but amazing to see how they're using something traditional that is in everyone's home.
That's right.
And allows people to be more conscious of what they're doing here. And so lots of innovation in that space that I think aligns with what you guys are
So
hosting.
amazing and so exciting. Brea, I always love coming up to visit you guys. It helps that it's Kelowna.
Yes.
But you guys are just so fantastic, and we at the CSE just support all of your efforts and look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Well, thank you, and looking forward to the conference coming up here in June.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brea.